Episode 272, The Power of a Strong Sense of Self, with Tanya Hale.
Welcome to Latter-day Life Coaches, the podcast where each episode is a conversation between me, Heather Rackham, and one of my amazing coach colleagues. Each coach here is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and a highly trained, experienced life coach making a great impact in the lives of their clients. And together, we have one main goal, helping you live your best life no matter what. You ready for this conversation with a coach? Here we go.
What does it really mean to have a strong sense of self? And why does it matter so much in our relationships, faith, and personal growth? Today, Heather sits down with Coach Tanya Hale to explore how developing a healthy sense of self transforms the way we experience life. Tanya shares how self-acceptance, compassion, and personal responsibility create emotional stability and strengthen our relationship with others and with God. They discuss the difference between confidence and comparison, why relying on others for validation leads to frustration, and how learning to extend grace to ourselves is a foundational step in emotional maturity. If you've ever struggled with people-pleasing, perfectionism, or seeking validation from others, this conversation will help you understand how to rebuild your sense of self, one small step at a time. Please enjoy.
Hey, everybody. We are glad to have you join us today, and I'm especially glad to have Coach Tanya Hale with me. Hello, Tanya.
Hey there, Heather.
How you doing?
So good. So good. Yeah.
So
Thank you
good.
for asking.
And in the thick, we talked a little bit before hitting record, and you are in the thick of some craziness, but I am so glad to have you take time out of your schedule and join me here today.
I'm always happy to have a chat with you or anybody who wants to talk coaching stuff. I always tell my friends, I'm like, if you don't want me to get stuck with me talking for 45 minutes, don't ask me any coaching questions because I will go on. I just love it so much.
It's interesting because I have conversations like this with coaches weekly, sometimes twice weekly. And I don't see you guys personally, but I feel like I know you all so deeply because we have these conversations that are so real and so to the core. And so I feel like I have friends that are just everywhere because I feel like we know each other's hearts more than a lot of people know our hearts because we share a lot of things. Yeah. And anyway, I love it. So thank you.
Yeah, I do too. Conversations that really matter.
Yeah.
That are significant impact in our life. I love those kinds of conversations.
It's one of my love languages. It took me a while to figure that out, but it's that.
Yeah,
so,
me too.
Tanya's been on before, and you have likely heard some of her podcasts with me. And she also has her own podcast, and I'm sure she'll share with us at some point what that is. But Tanya, can you give us a quick introduction to you before we get started today?
You bet. Thanks, Heather. Yep. I have been a life coach for a little over 7 years. I started off doing divorce coaching because I had been married for 24 years and then I had gotten divorced. And in the aftermath of figuring all that out and finding coaching and cleaning up a lot of stuff and putting pieces together where I was like, oh, wait a minute. Now I know what was missing and now I know why things didn't work and what was happening. I became a coach and I figured that out. And so I started off with divorce coaching and I did mostly like pre-divorce, like figuring out, do I want to get divorced? In the middle of the divorce, I don't want to be a jerk, but I don't know how else to be in this tough situation. Or even after divorce, when people are like, how do I get back on my feet? Like, I just don't even know how to move on from this. And so then my coaching journey really parallels my own journey as I was single for 6.5 years. And that was when I became a coach. And then I started doing some dating. And so my podcast moves a little bit into a little bit of dating, a little bit more relationship stuff. And then I met my husband and he and I got married, and implementing these tools into a marriage at a later life was brilliant. It was so amazing to be able to start a relationship with the maturity and wisdom of a 50-plus-year-old and to have tools that were not available to me for whatever reason in all those previous years. And my husband had tools, and we'd both been, you know, had either coaching or counseling for a lot of years, has just been a brilliant exercise. And to be able to implement these tools in a way that is creating just such a beautiful relationship has been amazing. And so my podcast has also shifted to now where I started talking a lot more about relationships on my podcast. And then I would get people calling up for consults saying, I don't want to get divorced. But gosh darn it, this relationship, I don't even know how to move forward. And I would say, okay. So I started doing a lot of difficult relationship stuff and a lot of marriages for sure, of people who are curious about divorce, wondering if that's the best option, or people who don't want to get divorced, but don't know how to clean things up and don't know how to move forward. I also tend to do a lot of, in the course of that, sometimes I start with that, but inevitably somebody says, and this adult child, can we talk about this? And so I do a lot of that as well. And I just love this midlife gig of figuring things out in a way that was not available to us when we were younger. We just didn't have the wisdom and the experience to put it together like we do now. And so I love this age where we're at. I love the relationships at this age. I love what we're able to create now that we did not have the capacity to really create when we were younger.
Yeah, and a lot of people will say things like, I wish I knew these things when I was younger. And the honest truth is, even if you did know them, you probably wouldn't have seen the value in them. You probably wouldn't have been able to apply them. I mean, you can in some way, but but I just think like it's kind of that old, you don't know what you don't know sort of thing. And people, they're not really, they haven't experienced, I don't know. There's something to experience, and there's something to having just life happen to you in general that provides you the willingness, I think, to look for things, to look for tools. So
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. I just think this is a window of opportunity for many people, and middle age gets a lot of grief, but I think middle age is freaking amazing. My 50s especially have just been so spectacular. Just love them.
And what a good message for people to hear, because people start to think like, oh, here we are. It's like the beginning of the end or something.
And
No.
you know what? I feel like this is the beginning of the beginning for me in so many ways. I feel like I am just starting to step into the greatest contribution I have to offer the world and the biggest impact that I can make. I feel like I'm just on the beginning of that. It's taken all these other years for me to really get to the point where I'm doing some of my best work, and I know that there's better work to come.
Yeah, it's so exciting. I love it. I love listening to you and putting it in that perspective, because I really do feel the same way. It's really exciting. It's really exciting to just think about what life has in store for us.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, we are going to talk about our sense of self today, which is integral to even the conversation that we've been having about midlife and living our fullest lives. And I would love for you to just give us a little rundown on how you would define that.
Okay, this is a favorite topic of mine. So, sense of self is the space of how do I view myself? How do I see myself? What do I believe about myself? What do I appreciate about myself? And it's not just that we have this rosy colored view of, oh, I'm good at this and I'm good at this and good at this, but it's also this whole place of self acceptance. I am a human. I have good, I have things I struggle with. I have, all these back and forths, right? I have light, I have dark. I have all this stuff. I have things I'm great at, and I have things that I'm really horrible at. And it's okay. And that's who I am. And really being able to say, I like all of me. I like the good and the bad. And I'm okay with who I am. And that doesn't mean that I want to just sit down in a chair and rock it out on the porch for the rest of my life, right? I'm not just going to say that this is who I am, get used to it and get over it. But I'm in a place where I'm like, listen, this is who I am. I know underneath everything, I'm a really good person. And I know that I have the strength and the capacity and the diligence to figure things out. And life may throw me some really difficult curves, and that's okay. I can handle it. And I can figure out, I'm going to make mistakes with people. And guess what? I'm going to circle back around and I'm going to apologize and I'm going to do better next time. It's just this full sense of accepting ourselves as a human, accepting our human challenges and being able to be in a good place and still love ourselves and support ourselves and offer ourselves grace for our humanity.
The word grace there is so important because for most people, I think the things they don't love about themselves stand out to them more than the things that they sometimes like about themselves. And I think in order to have that compassionate growth mindset of ourself and constantly trying to progress, if we can't have that grace, we get stuck in thinking that the things that we don't like about us define us in some way, which they do to some extent, but they don't have to damn us and keep us from growing and progressing.
Yeah, 100%. Right? It's just part of our human experience that we were sent here to do. We weren't sent down here to be perfect or even to become perfect in this lifetime. We were just sent down here to be humans. And that means we're going to have a lot of mistakes. We're going to have a lot of trials. We're going to have a lot of struggles. And the point of humanity is working through it, digging through the dirt, figuring out all the tough, well, not even figuring out all the tough stuff, sometimes just surviving the tough stuff, sometimes figuring it out, but a piece at a time. That's just one of my mantras, is just like, listen, a piece at a time. I'm figuring out life. I've got a 20,000 piece puzzle here, and I just get one puzzle piece every once in a while. And I'm like, oh, look, I can see this. Like I can put it together, and I can be okay with the fact that I've got this 20,000 piece puzzle and I've only got 500 pieces put in there. That's okay. It's exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I'm just working the process that God gave me, which is figure it out piece at a time.
That analogy is making me laugh. I'm thinking about this Christmas. We were up at our cabin, and I love to do puzzles, but I was doing a puzzle that I was almost done with, and I got to a place where I'm like, I can't find any more pieces that match. Like, it's sat on the table at our place for like 2 months now, unfinished. But I think that is so true to life. Like, we get to places sometimes where we just feel stuck, and and ultimately we're not stuck. We're just like, we're growing and we're working things out, but it can feel like we aren't making any progress, but that is part of the process.
Yeah. And I think sometimes those stuck places are exactly where we need to be for a while. Like sometimes our brain just needs time to regroup and to reprocess. And then you know how you'll be stuck for a bit, and then all of a sudden one day you'll wake up and you'll go, hey, what about this idea? And we have the courage and the fortitude to step into it and say, well, let me try something different.
Yeah.
And that's having the courage to do that is all part of a strong sense of self. Like, I don't have to stay here stuck. I can move forward and I can try different things. And it's okay if those new things don't even work.
So true. And I would dare say that you probably wouldn't even have the courage to take that step if you hadn't been in that place of feeling quote unquote stuck for a while. It takes those times of like questioning and wondering for us to build up the courage that we need in order. So it is once again part of the process. What does it look like then for people? I mean, you've given us a couple examples of what somebody can do with a strong sense of self. But if somebody is struggling with that, how does that manifest itself in somebody's life? What does it look like with somebody?
When we have a struggling sense of self, we struggle in pretty much everything. We will struggle making decisions because we don't have the confidence in making a mistake. A strong sense of self says, it's okay if I make a mistake. I'll just circle back around. I'll figure it out eventually. But when we have a struggling sense of self, we're afraid to make a mistake. We see the world in very black and white. Well, this is right and this is wrong. Because we might have even perfectionist tendencies if we have a more struggling sense of self, because we're so afraid of other people's judgments. We're afraid of what's going on when other people don't like us. So we might people please more. We oftentimes seek other people's validation because we get our sense of value from other people saying, oh, you're good at this. Oh, you're so great at this. Whereas if I have a strong sense of self, I do that within myself. David Schnarch, I always struggle with, see, that's where I get hung up. David Schnarch I love the example that he gives, and he says it's like our sense of self is like a balloon inside of us, and it's got to be pumped up, right? So you think about a tire pump, right? Hooked onto your sense of self. And I'm responsible for pumping up my own sense of self. I'm responsible for feeling good about myself, for feeling strong and capable and confident and calm and curious and all the things. And if I have to depend on somebody else to pump up my balloon for me, which needs constant pumping, by the way, right? It's not like we
Right.
can like pump it and then coast for 3 years. We have to constantly be thinking. But if I'm waiting for somebody else to pump me up so that I can feel good about myself, I sometimes might be waiting a very long time, even if I have people who love me in their life, because other people have their own lives going on and they can't just sit around 24 hours a day and think, what does Tanya need? How can I help Tanya feel strong and confident and capable today? That's not their job. It's my job. And so if I'm waiting for other people to pump me up, I'm always feeling at a lack. And here's the other piece of this. Nobody else can create my sense of self.
Yeah.
That's why it's called self, right? Because it's mine to own. It's mine to create. Nobody can give me that. I sometimes talk about it in the sense of like, I have this bucket and I ask other people sometimes to put stuff in my bucket, compliment me, tell me good things that I'm doing, like notice me. And I want other people to do that, thinking that it will fill my sense of self bucket. But here's the interesting thing about it. Nobody else can put anything in my bucket that will stay. Whatever anybody else puts in there, they can I could tell my husband, listen, I want you to compliment me 5 times a day. That will make me feel better and stronger. And he can do it, but it's just going to fall through. And the unintended consequence of this is that if he's doing stuff and it's not sticking in my bucket, which it can't, my natural go-to is to say, wait a minute, you must be doing this wrong. I'm going to start blaming him and saying, you're not complimenting me enough, or you're not complimenting me using the right words or the right phrases, or you're just not sincere enough. I don't feel it from you, right? Because it's not landing and doing what I think it should do, which is make me feel better long term. I mean, it might feel good for a second,
Yeah.
but it doesn't stick. And so when it's not sticking, my natural man tendency is to look outside and go, wait, you're doing it wrong. You're not complimenting me the right way or enough or all that other stuff we talked about. And then it breaks down our relationships, because then what happens is if my husband's over there saying, listen, I'm doing all the things. I'm trying really hard to compliment you to do the things that you've asked me to do. And then he's going to hit a point where he's going to go, listen, it's just not good enough. Nothing I do is good enough for you. I just can't do anything right. And then we start into that cycle, right, of marital discord, where he's feeling like he can't do anything right. And I'm feeling empty and feeling like he doesn't love me enough. And then that starts a whole another set of problems. And so when I struggle with a sense of self, that's one of the biggest ways that it shows up in creating a dysfunction in my relationship, is because I'm expecting my husband to do something that he cannot do for me. And then my natural tendency is to turn around and blame him for not doing it right.
Right. Because we need somebody to blame, because it's definitely not us, right? That's what
Right.
yeah.
Our
'Cause
primitive brain does not want to take responsibility, because that means I
no.
have work to do.
Yeah. It's easier, we think, to offboard it onto somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
The reality is if we haven't pumped up that balloon, if we don't believe it about ourselves, it doesn't matter, to your point, how many times somebody says it to you, your brain cannot believe it. So that's why
Yeah.
we have to do our job of pumping up that balloon so that we
Yeah.
truly do believe those things. That's the only time that it could actually settle, is if we believe it. It is if we know that what they're saying is actually true. Yeah, that's true about me. I can believe that. My brain can internalize it because I see it as truth.
Yeah.
But it's
Yeah.
our job. It's our job to get there. So
Right. And I love that you brought that up, because the other side of that is true as well. When somebody makes a complaint toward us,
mhm.
the stronger my sense of self, the less threatened I feel by that. The more curious I'm going to be able to get, because I'm going to say, oh, huh, I wonder if that's true. And I'm not afraid to look at it. I'm not afraid to see things that I do wrong or to see my faults or my weaknesses, because I just recognize it as, oh, that's just part of my human experience and it's okay. And I want to see those things because I want to treat you better. And if I'm not treating you really well, I want to know that. So rather than getting defensive and angry and fighting and pushing back and resisting it, I'm able to open up my arms and say, oh, tell me all the things. Tell me about why that hurts for you. Tell me why that's a struggle. And I'm not afraid by that. If I have a struggling sense of self, when somebody gives me some feedback, it's hard for me to hear because it feels like it's an attack. When very
Mhm.
often it's not an attack. Sometimes it's just somebody else hurting and wanting to share something. Like just
Yeah.
this morning, So I mentioned before that I use this phrase all the time, like piece at a time, right? And so my husband and I are getting ready to move from our house, and we've been married about 4 years, and he has lived in this house for 20 years. And so he's got a lot of memories, a lot of emotions here.
Yeah.
And I don't, right? This is the house that he had his previous wife in, and he raised his children in. And though I like the house and I'm happy here, I don't have a lot of really strong emotional ties to this home. And so every time somebody shows up from Facebook Marketplace to buy something and they walk out the door, I'm like, piece at a time. We're taking care of stuff, right? And this morning he's like, he sold something and somebody came and bought a desk and we carried it out and he came in and he said, don't say it. And I said, don't say what? And he's like, don't say a piece at a time. And I'm like, oh, tell me why? Like, what's going on with that? And he's like, this is emotional for me. It's hard for me to sell all these things. And when you say just a piece at a time, it sounds like it's just like kind of this flippant, like you don't care about my emotions. And I was like, oh, like that's not even where my brain goes with that. But I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. So now I won't say a piece at a time. Now I know that that just triggers a little bit of this is hard in him.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
don't, but if I was anxious about that, if he said, don't say a piece at a time, I would say, what is wrong with you? Like, it's just this. I would get really defensive and start defending my position. And rather than owning it and saying, oh, like in my brain, there's nothing wrong with saying that. But if it's hurtful for him, and not really hurtful, but it's
Right.
just it's hard for him right now,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And so I'm able to just accept that and go, I see that.
Yeah.
Let me step into being a more sensitive spouse for you
Right.
in that way. And this is what it takes. This is what having a strong sense of self offers our relationships
Mm.
is the ability to receive feedback, the ability to own where we're not showing up in beautiful ways. When sometimes we all are going to say mean things sometimes or thoughtless things and not even aware and being able to say, oh, thank you for helping me see that rather than feeling threatened and attacked. I mean, obviously there are some abusive situations that we
Mhm.
don't fit into this category, right? And we do need to be aware of that. But I think a large portion of us are not in abusive situations. We're just in two humans trying to figure out a relationship situations. And so learning how to just create a safe space for our spouse, that comes from a strong sense of self.
That example I appreciate so much because it really represents how an opportunity or an experience that could have maybe driven a small wedge if you lacked a sense of self. But with a strong sense of self, it becomes something that actually brings you closer together. It strengthens your relationship because you are able to feel that self security so that you don't feel panicked or judged or
Yeah.
I don't know, like threatened in any way emotionally. And so you can be curious and you grow closer rather than drifting apart. And I think
Yeah.
that is like that vulnerability is only available to us if we're willing to, I don't know, it takes that strong sense of self to be vulnerable and
Yeah.
to check in and see what our influence is having on other people.
Yeah. You're exactly right. Like this is the core of our relationship in every element.
Mm.
It's the core of our relationship with God. If I'm afraid to take my struggles to God because I'm afraid of censure or disappointment, which I don't think God can ever get disappointed, right? Because he doesn't have expectations that we're going to be perfect. So, I just think it impacts every element of our lives,
Yeah, one thing that I hear people say sometimes, and this is probably not a great example, but I think it's such a funny thing, but it's always like, "Oh, I lack patience, but I'm not gonna pray for patience because I'm afraid of what will happen, what God will, like, throw my way," and I think it's so interesting that that's how we view him. If we are
Yeah.
like, "Heavenly Father, please help me to have more patience," that he's just gonna be in some way, like, I don't know the right word, but just gonna throw down all the things on us that are just gonna demand us to learn patience, and that's just not the way that I see God, and I don't know, it's just an interesting way that we have it
Yeah.
looking at at him, so
Yeah, I agree. The more I have worked on my sense of self, the closer and more intimate of a relationship I feel like I have with God. Because I think that I'm seeing myself more the way that he sees me. And I think that's a key element of a sense of self as well. Do I see myself as God created me to be? And
Mhm.
guess what? He created me to be a human, with a lot of flaws, a human who's going to make a lot of mistakes, a human who's just going to bumble and fumble her way through life. That's who he created me to be. That was part of the plan. And if I can learn to accept me as he created me, and with strengths as well, right? Like, I think sometimes in this discussion, it's easy to focus on that, but he also created me with a lot of strengths and a lot of powerful things, a lot of really great things. But when I can see me as the whole person that he created me as and embrace that, I think that can't help but draw us closer to God and not make us so afraid of the atonement of Christ, but make us want to embrace the atonement, because that draws us even closer. That helps me become more in alignment with the person that I really want to be. And that feels amazing. Doesn't mean I'm perfect, but it means that those little nudges over time that get me closer and closer, those are beautiful little elements in our lives that provide so much satisfaction and fulfillment.
I think that we can all relate. I would hope that we can all relate to feeling that, like that feeling of alignment. Might not always abide with us, but like we recognize that feeling of this feels really, yeah, I feel connected. I feel like I'm on the path that I want to be on right now. And yes, that strong sense of self is helpful in keeping us there. I can hear people now saying, okay, I struggle in this department to have a strong sense of self. What would you say to them? How would you help somebody strengthen that sense of self?
I'm going to go back to a phrase my husband doesn't love. I think it's just a piece at a time. Wouldn't it be fabulous if we could listen to a podcast like this and go, a strong sense of self? Okay, I'm just going to implement that. It would be fabulous if we could just do exactly that, snap our fingers and have it. But it doesn't really work that way. Although I think the more that we really strive to understand God's purpose for us here on earth, I think the more that we go, this is just a learning place, and that we're supposed to make a lot of mistakes, and it's okay that I make mistakes. I would say one of the first steps of developing a sense of self is embracing our humanity. And that sometimes is the really dirty, icky stuff, that I make mistakes. I sometimes say things that hurts people's feelings. Like 99.9% of the people in the world, I don't remember people's names, right? Like all of these things that we sometimes get on our case for, let's just stand back and say, like, this is just what humans do. And it's okay to be a human, because that's who God created me to be. And learning to really offer ourselves grace rather than beating ourselves down for little mistakes that we make. I read something just a few weeks ago about the difference between an elite athlete and an amateur athlete is that an amateur athlete will make a mistake, like I played pickleball, right? So like, let's say that I miss a serve. Like 4 or 5 plays later, I'm still going to be going, oh, I can't believe I missed that serve. Like I do. Like I don't let things go. I don't say, okay. But a pro athlete, they have this incredible ability to make a mistake and then go, oh, okay, moving on. Next, right? And not that they're not going to review it maybe later on and go, yeah, like I don't love that I did that. So what would I do different next time? But that's how they talk to themselves about it. Like, oh, okay, I see what I did. How do I want to clean that up? What do I want to do here, rather than this constant beating ourselves up? So I think one of the first things is offering ourselves grace for our humanity, really coming to be okay with the fact that we're not perfect, being okay with the fact that I have weaknesses, and sometimes glaring weaknesses, and I have faults, and I make mistakes. And I think that is the first step to really developing a sense of self, because that's what it requires. It requires that I have my own back. I can't expect anybody else, whoever it is that loves me so much, I cannot expect them to have my back. Is it nice when they do? Absolutely it is. You know what? But it's like the sprinkles on a cupcake. Sprinkles on a cupcake are so fun. They're nice. They're fun to look at. They make you go, that's so cute, but they don't provide any nutrition. They actually don't even taste good. Like, they're pleasant. And that's kind of how other people complimenting us or building us or doing this stuff, that's what it is in my mind. It's sprinkles on a cupcake. It's great and it's wonderful, but I have to be the cupcake and the frosting. I have to be the substance And then when other people compliment me, gosh darn it, who doesn't love a little validation once in a while? I love when people validate me, but I don't feel like I need other people's validation to feel like I'm strong and capable of doing things. I have a podcast that this week came out, podcast number 400, which means I've been doing my podcast for over 7 years now. And I think about if I waited for somebody to send me an email every week saying, "Hey, loved your podcast this week," I would not have 400 podcasts out there, right? I had to hit a point where I do my podcast because I love it, because this content puts me on fire and I know that it changes people's lives. And I put it out there because I want to put it out there, not because people are trying to put things in my bucket, right? I love it when somebody sends me a note and says, "Wow, great podcast. That really impacted me." I love that. For sure I do. But I don't need it to continue to put amazing content out into the world. And so I just think this is this place of being able to offer ourselves grace for our mistakes. And so I'm going to say, first of all, grace for our humanity that's difficult, but then let's also receive with grace the strengths and the amazingness of us as well. I think that that's the second thing we have to do, is learn to accept what we're great at, what God has given us that is a gift and a talent and a blessing. And when we can learn to really incorporate and love the whole of us, and start realizing, like, some people, if you ever notice, some people, you give them a compliment and they're just like, "Oh no, I'm really so bad at that." Like they just
It's painful.
struggle to, it's painful. Yeah. And they cannot see their own amazingness.
Mm.
And I don't care who you are, you have amazingness. Every person in the world has amazingness. And we need to be able to see that amazingness. And we need to be able to see our not so amazingness. And we need to be able to let both of those exist within us at the same time. So anyway, I think that those two things really are the crux of our strong sense of self.
Yeah, I think that's a really great way to look at it. I think that both of those things require an element of curiosity on our part, like being
Mm.
curious about ourselves, but compassionate curiosity. So those two things there, right? Like to be compassionate with
Right.
ourselves as we are being curious and we are discovering things about us, the things that we like, the things that we don't necessarily like, and like just coming to know those things and accepting them as, the full package, like you said. I think it's
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah, I think that compassionate curiosity, I think that's a great summary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard to do. It's a skill, I think, is to practice.
And that's the thing that's so
Yeah.
exciting about this, is it's a skill. It's
Mhm.
not something we're born with. Well, I think we are born with a fair amount of sense
I
of
think
self.
we're born
You look
with
at the
it,
little
but
kids.
we cover it up, right? Like
Yeah, we
that's what
lose
we're
it over
doing.
time.
Yeah. What
Yeah,
we're like we're spending our midlife like unpiling all the
absolutely. Yeah.
beliefs that we have piled on ourselves.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree with you. We're
And
born with
all
that.
the societal expectations. I know for women, there was so much pressure to don't be stuck up, don't be conceited, don't be so full of yourself. And rather than this place of, listen, I'm a great person, I have great things to offer the world, we were taught to downplay who we are. And that was a burying of our sense of self. And I think you're exactly right. I think it's always existed with us. We've just lost it over time. We've just buried it. And so now we're just uncovering it. Now we're at a point in our life where we get to start figuring out, where did it go? And how do I unleash it? Because it was there before.
So
And
fantastic.
it is a skill. I 100% agree. It doesn't just appear. We develop it over time. Just like riding a bicycle. We learn to get better, or playing pickleball. We learn to get better the more consistent we do it.
Yeah.
And I keep saying, every time I get a good shot pickleball, I'm like, listen, the more I practice, the luckier I get. And I think it's the same thing here. The more I intentionally choose to step into this love of me as a whole person, then I develop that skill, and it does get easier and easier and easier over time.
That is so true and very good. As we're wrapping up here, I was just like something that I really kind of grabbed onto this week. So we had a summit and you were a participant in that summit. So when this podcast airs, that summit will have come and gone, and you could email me and get access to watch that. But one of the conversations I had in that summit was with someone who's not a coach. Her name's Tess Frame, but she said something that I loved. She just said, "I'm funny." Like, she just owned it. Like, and I thought it was so refreshing to just have somebody say something that they believe about themselves. And it wasn't like she was like boastful. It wasn't like she was trying to downplay herself, but she just was owning something about herself that she liked. And I thought, if we could all like have one thing about ourselves that even if we just had one thing that we could just own and love and just say, like, just starting there would does so much for us to just, if it's only one thing as you're trying to build that sense of self, start someplace and own it and move forward. So
Yeah. And owning that doesn't make us conceited. It makes us confident. What makes us conceited or arrogant is when we compare that to other people and say, and I'm better than you because that's what creates the conceited or the stuck up or the arrogant. But
or the flip side, when you compare yourself and you're like, oh, I'm worse than they are, right? Like, that's the opposite of that.
Right.
So I think there's two ends of that we have to be careful of.
Yeah, I think so too. But being able to step in the middle space that just says, listen, I'm good at this and I'm not good at this. It's all good. It's just all part of, it's just where I'm at in life. And that's the confidence of being able to recognize it without comparison on either end. That's a strong sense of self. And that creates a space where we can develop relationships that are beautiful and deep and intimate. We cannot create these intimate partnerships if we don't see ourselves as equals. And we do not see ourselves as equals until we have a strong sense of self.
I think that's a perfect place to just end right there, because I think that's so true. Tanya, before we leave, can you tell people how they can connect with you?
Absolutely. Thank you. My podcast is called Intentional Living with Tanya Hale. And it can be found wherever you find your podcasts. Super proud of the content that I put out there. I have a website, tanyahale.com. And on that, I have all my podcasts. I have a blog on there. I have free coaching times. You can sign up for a free consult with me, all kinds of stuff there. I can also be found on Facebook and Instagram under Tanya Hale LDS Life Coaching. And I just love to connect. I do a free webinar coaching call every month that people can come to and just get free coaching or listen to other people get coached. And I very often am doing classes. In fact, I know that this will have already started by the time this airs, but right now I'm just getting ready to start 2 sense of self classes where we do a 9-week deep dive into, let's talk about sense of self. Let's talk about growing that. And this is a reoccurring class for me because I just have found that with the work I do with difficult relationships, this is where we start. We have to start with this place of real self-acceptance and self-love. And then that radiates out into our other relationships. So
thank you. We'll link to all those things in the show notes to make it easy for people to find them. Tanya, I appreciate this conversation so much. And thank you. And thank you to our listeners for joining us today. We hope that you will join us again next week. Thanks, Tanya. Hey, we just wanted to thank you for spending part of your day here with us at Latter-day Life Coaches and being part of this conversation. Share this with your friends so that you can have a conversation with them on this topic as well. And as always, subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Have a good one, my friends.